Most of you.
Don't put angle up there.
I ain't promising you anything, dude. Me and the girl I work at, Casey, she's dyslexic too. And us, how do you spell it? And I'm like, yeah, don't bother. Yeah, yeah. You've seen her ride. Yeah, okay, yeah. All right, everybody ready? All right. Today is August 1st, 2024, and I got it right. This is my little Bible study. We're at Humble Hearts Ministry again, and we're still rocking on with the book of Revelation. All right. See, last week. I finished up through 6 seals, right? We got to chapter 7 where we're starting to talk about tribes again. So, if you remember way back in the day, there's a few of you in here that will remember. We've already done quite a bit of work involving the tribes of Israel. All the way back, remember we went all the way back to 6-day creation, studied the difference between the 6-day creation and then and Adam, the formation of Adam after the day of rest, who was a tiller of the ground. You notice that Adam is the beginning of the people that eventually become Israel, and that we were kind of studying that as we go. Takes you all the way up through the flood and on and then beyond. All right. Now, where we kind of stopped was where we got to Abraham, if I remember kind of right. Now, everybody's probably heard of Abraham one way or another. All right. His name starts out Abram. All right, and God changes it to Abraham, which means father of many nations. His wife Sarai, all right, he also changes her name to Sarah. So both the matriarch and the patriarch that come out that eventually will become the tribes, both of them had their name changed by God himself. All right, now, I've got to go back. I want to start, so I'm going to say something again because I used to say it all the time, all right? Now, my job is to teach you what I know about the Bible, all right? And in doing so, I'm going to step on some toes sometimes, all right? Rest assured, if I got you today, well, next week I probably won't get you, all right? But I eventually will get around to somebody, getting next to somebody because their grandpa taught it or somebody taught it, all right? I'm not going to apologize about it, but I will continue to do it. So just know I'm not picking on anybody about anything, all right? And I come up here, we teach this, we talk about it. If you agree with it, fine. If you don't, we'll go in peace. It's, no problem. But just know I will get all of you. Eventually, I'll get all of you. All right, if I haven't already. All right.
But remember, he can back up everything he teaches.
That's right. And you can disagree with it. That's fine. And you maybe you'll find something to back it up too, and we can sit there and argue about it. That's fine because when we leave here, we're going to peace because we're both saved by the same grace. Whether we're right or wrong doesn't matter. That's not what gets the butt saved, right? Because that wasn't what it didn't say in John 3:16 anywhere about your knowledge base, except you understand who the Messiah was. That was the only thing based that up. But like I said, welcome to my world. That's just kind of the price you pay when you stand up here and teach, because you have to draw a line somewhere. All right, and that's just kind of where rubber meets the road with it. All right. But like I said, Sarah and Abraham. All right. Abraham is the father of many nations, right? Now, when we start talking about the Bible, the only nation that we tend to focus on out of all that is the one that comes through the tribes of Israel, right? I mean, when you start talking about it, they're mentioned he's the father of many nations, and Israel is yet but one. Even when you divide Israel up into 12 tribes, it's still only one nation, all right? Except for in the time when they were divided by God into two nations. Okay, but that's the only way we're going to get there with the tribes of Israel. But that promise to Abraham goes way back, and that's where we're going to start a little bit tonight. All right, Father, we ask this: open eyes and open ears, no matter where they are. In Jesus' name, Amen. All right, that's what it says, and this is pretty much going to go just through the book of Genesis and kind of not everything, but we're going to hit some high points. All right. So what it says. Remember, we're looking at Abraham and the descendancy coming from Abraham, where we're going to discover the line of Israel comes in, okay? That's really what we're looking for. All right. Now, Sarai, Abram's wife, bare no children, and she had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. All right, and listen to what it says. And Sarai said unto Abraham, Behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing, And I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abraham hearkened to the voice of Sarai. All right, so here we go. Sarah's kind of hedging her own bets here because she's already been exposed to the idea of the promises around Abraham, all right? But she's getting really up in her age, and she's starting to get a little antsy about all of it, so she starts to develop her own plan. Or at least that's what she thinks. But of course, all this is unfolding exactly as God had it intended, all right? Don't think that any of this is any kind of an accident, all right? Because if you study this book of Genesis in any kind of detail, you'll understand that God goes out of his way to make sure he develops Israel and keeps them. When Isaac's looking for a wife, he goes way back to Nahor, to Abraham's brother, right, to find a wife for him, all right? But keeping it out, separated, but still in the same people. And this is to develop the line that will become Israel, but not only that. Because here we have one that's half Egyptian. All right, listen to what it says. Verse 3. And Sarai, Abraham's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abraham had dwelt there 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her husband Abraham to be his wife. Okay. Now, right there, people have a lot of hard times with Ishmael. All right. But what is the Bible referring to her here as? As one of Abraham's wives. All right. Now, so don't think that Ishmael is some kind of discarded bastard child. All right. That's what I mean. Because here it clearly says that Sarai gave her to Abraham to be his wife. With her. Remember, they're polygyny. They follow multiple wives. All right? Listen to verse 4. And he went into Hagar. All right, and you don't need that explained, right? And she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. Oh, see what you have here. Hagar does what Sarai can't. And she conceives a child by Abraham, a child who is half out of the tribes of Israel, half out of the Adamic lineage, and half Egyptian. All right, hold on to that. But as soon as she finds out she's pregnant, now she starts to get cocky. Now, instead of Sarah being the boss, like she's supposed to be, now she's conceived and she thinks she's quite a bit. Now listen to what it says. And Sarai said unto Abraham, my wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid in thy bosom, and when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judge between me and thee. All right? Let God decide. All right. So this, from this point forward, becomes God's decision. And Abraham said unto Sarai, behold, thy maid is in thy hand. Do to her as it pleaseth thee. All right? So what did Abraham say? Look, they're both his wives. But Sarah's the first wife. Now I want you to note something. Did Abraham pick Hagar? Did Abraham say, I don't want her? No, Sarah did. Sarai did. Sarai is the one that said, I can't conceive. Abraham is going to marry her. I want you to hold on to that because that ain't going to be the last time you hear this little scenario, all right? But nonetheless, it says, he submit unto her. She was your handmaid. She may be my wife, but she's still your handmaid. And what does he tell her? Go ahead and do as it pleaseth thee. Right? And when Sarai dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. And listen to this in 7. And the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, and by the fountain in the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence comest thou, and whither thou goest? And where you coming from? Where do you think you're going? All right. And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, return to thy mistress and submit thyself unto her hand. Why? She's the boss. She was the first wife. All right. And before she was Abraham's wife, she was Sarah's servant. You know what I mean? And the angel of the Lord said unto her, now this is interesting, all right? And you don't hear a lot of this. This is one of those things you don't hear a lot about in church. This is what it says in verse 10. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, who's he talking to? He's talking to Hagar. I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. All right, now, this is the only place in the Bible that I know of where this kind of a promise is made to the genealogy of a woman. All right. Now, factor all this in. This is part of the Abrahamic covenant. All right. So, the Abrahamic covenant is going to come from the son Ishmael and that side of it, but she's the mother, and it's her seed line, Ishmael being a part of it. All right. That's promised to be multiplied exceedingly. All right, and remember, you're going to hear this promise again, because it's going to sound a lot like the same promise that was made to the tribes. All right? Verse 11, and the angel of the Lord said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. Remember what it said, let God choose between the two. Well, God made this choice. Sent her back and promised her, you be obedient, and this is what I'm going to do for you. And she did it. All right? Now, we're going to stay on this, and we're going to go on to verse 17, chapter 17, verse 1. Listen to what it says. And when Abraham was 90 years old and 9, the Lord appeared to Abraham and said unto him, I am the Almighty God, walk before me, and be thou perfect. I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. All right, so we have this same promise that's diverged here. All right, we're going to give it back to Ishmael and who he is, because he's going to come back in the story. All right. Now, this is exactly the same kind of promise that he made to Hagar. Right. But yet he's making it to Abraham, and Abraham fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. All right. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee. All right. And so already this has begun to diverge. All right, because Isaac's next. He's the next child. But here we have Hagar. All right. Verse 6, and I will make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed, and thee, and thy seed after thee, and their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto them, and to thy seed after thee. Now, how many people need an explanation to what everlasting means? Okay. So that means today, everything that we're talking about in this book of Genesis, is still in effect. Absolutely to this day. Why? Because time hasn't ever ended, and it's an everlasting covenant. All right, and you're going to hold on to that because we're going to keep building on it. All right? Verse 8, and I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession. I will be their God, and God said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. That's perpetual, just like he said, for everlasting. All right, so here we have the setup then. We have Ishmael's diverged, and here we have the promise about Israel already beginning to emerge. All right? But this thing with Abraham and Hagar is not over yet, right? We're going from verse 9, we're going to jump the same chapter, but to verse 19. As soon as I get a drink. Now remember, this is just kind of a general overview of who Israel is and who those people out there are. I mean, because every one of these people we're talking about, what did he say his name was? The father of many nations. All right? So these people have national identities or major population groups within national identities. Right? To this day, an everlasting covenant. Okay? Verse 19, and God said unto Sarah, thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac. So two sons right now, Ishmael and Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. Again, the term everlasting is used. Verse 20, and as for Ishmael, I've heard thee. Behold, I have blessed him, and I will make him fruitful, and I will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he begat, and I will make him a great nation. All right, so here we go again. This is back on Ishmael again. All right, we've not even talked about anything coming through Isaac. We're back to Ishmael, dealing with him, and I want you to listen to what he says. Verse 21, but my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time the next year. All right, so next year at this time, when this is going to happen. Verse 22, and he left off talking with him, and God went up from Abraham. And Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and all that were brought with money, and every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the selfsame day, as God had said unto him. And Abraham was 90 years old and 9 when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, and Ishmael his son was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, in the selfsame day as Abraham circumcised Ishmael his son. Now, we have everything we need to know who's Ishmael's descendants. Okay? And this is going to show you how accurate the Bible actually is. All right, what do we have here? We have a boy who's half out of the lineage that will become Israel and half Egyptian. All right? They'll become known as Arab. All right? Now, he was circumcised on the same day as Abraham. This is the patriarch for these people. All right? So what are you looking for in the Middle East? You're looking for a group of Middle East people who are not Jews, but yet they circumcise their boys. Okay? You follow me so far? Do you know when you do your legwork who this is? It's the Saudi princes. The princes of Saudi Arabia still circumcises their males. They're the only Arabs to do so. Okay? You follow what I'm saying? So that tells you who these 12 princes are. And when you get to look at those families, you got roughly 12 family groups that make up the 12 princes of Saudi Arabia, just like the Bible says. Right? You can identify them because they're the only group in that outside of the Jews in that group that actually still circumcise their children. All right? So welcome to the 21st century. When we talk about the Bible in the last days, if you pay attention, well, Ishmael's people, Saudi Arabia is a big player in what's going on. Okay, remember, he promised her, I said, I'm going to make you exceedingly great. That's what he told Hagar. All right, so they're going to have influence today. All right? Why? Because the covenants that he made are everlasting. All right. Now, that's kind of interesting, I think. All right, and that sets up kind of like I said, when you pay attention to what's going on politically, well, look, Saudi Arabia, they're Islamic, and Iran is Islamic. All right? But according to Iran, the people of Saudi Arabia, they're the wrong kind of Islam. All right? And they've got to kill them. So it's the kind of, you see that they've developed because of who they are. Because they're half out of that lineage that they hate so much. Don't think so? We'll just go watch the news and see what's going on around Israel right now. All right? Another war developing all up in the north side now. Let's pay attention because it could get big. It's going to, I think. We'll see it play out like it's supposed to. All right. But nonetheless, and people say, well, okay, this Hagar Ishmael, he's some bastard of Abraham. Well, I don't think that's what it really says, right? Well, listen to what it says in 21, verse 8. All right? Because God goes out of his way to protect Hagar and Ishmael. And the child grew, and he was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. All right, and Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, which she had borne unto Abraham, mocking. All right, see, Sarah don't like it. Now it's funny because this was Sarah's idea. All right? But as soon as she gets pregnant with Isaac, well, then she has a whole different opinion about Ishmael and Hagar. I mean, you can take that and break it up however you want, but that's what you got. All right? And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian. Verse 10. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, cast out this bondwoman and her son, and the son of the bondwoman shall not be the heir with my son, even with Isaac. All right, so Sarah's all sold on what's going on now that she's got a legitimate heir coming through her. All right, but she's already caused one division in that lineage that God uses to make 12 tribes of people other than the tribes of Israel, all out of Hagar. All right, and I can't help but think it's because maybe it's Hagar's heart. She seems like a pretty good person. I mean, she's guilty of many things, but who are we to judge? Because she's mocking Sarah because she got pregnant. Well, look at that. Didn't work out so good. She ends up out in the wilderness, right? Well, but nonetheless, verse 11, and the thing which was very grievous unto Abraham's sight because of his son. Why? Because Abraham loved Ishmael. It's his boy. That's his first son. All right? But Sarah's having a hard time with it. All right? Verse 12, and God said unto Abraham, let it not be grievous in the sight because of the lad and because of the bondwoman. In all that Sarai has said unto thee, hearken unto her voice. For Isaac shall thy seed be called. All right? Now here's where it starts to get moving toward the tribes of Israel. Right through Isaac. All right? And he's promised that the seed would be called through Isaac. And so let's see what happens. And also of the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation, because he is thy seed. So he already promised Abraham, and he don't care who it is. The promise was made to Abraham, not to Ishmael or even to his mother, even though he made promises to Ishmael's mother, just saying. Because if he is one of the seed, so he promised him he's doing exactly what he promised. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and took bread and a bottle of water and gave it to Hagar and put it on her shoulder and the child and sent them away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. All right, now here's where I'm going to pick a fight about Abraham. Now what's it say about Abraham? Abraham's a wealthy man, right? He's got more than he needs. Let's just put it that way. And then you don't have to apologize it because he's blessed by God and is wealthy because of it. All right? But what does he give this girl? All right? Bread and a bottle of water to send her on her way. All right, now he could have did a lot more. Maybe he was going to, might comply with Sarah's wishes, but he could have did a lot more than just some bread and some water. And here, hit the road, girl. That's a hard divorce decree. I can't think of it any other way than that. All right? But also at the same time, remember who Hagar is. Hagar is an Egyptian. She's a desert person. One desert to another desert, it's all her home. All right, you see what I'm saying? And a desert person doesn't die in the desert because they've lived there all their life. They know how to survive. All right? Well, I think that's just kind of some food for thought. Abraham could have provided a little bit more. Right? Now, think about that. And then think about the relationship between Saudi Arabia and Israel this day. I mean, they're kind of there with them because Iran hates them because they're the wrong kind of Islam. All right? But yet they don't really like them because they don't trust them because they know this story. And they know that when Hagar and Ishmael were out, that Abraham set them out on the road with a bottle of water and some bread. So I think that has a lot to do with why they don't like Israel so much. Because they don't forget nothing. Americans, we forget what we did 10 minutes ago most of the time. They don't. And they remember where they come from, so much so that they still celebrate the circumcision of their males, even though nobody else in their community seems to appreciate what they're doing. But like I said, they're kind of outcasts at the same time. All right, now, let's see, how long have we been going? Well, just a little bit more. Let's see. Let me see. I'm going to go down here to the bottom of this, and then we're going to go right here. All right. And then next week we're going to go back and pick up the rest of it. I'm trying not to kill you guys because this is kind of dry. It takes up several chapters of the book of Genesis. The story is amazing, though. If you've never actually just sat down and the book of Genesis, by the time you start talking about Abraham, you don't have to do with a lot of symbology work. You don't have like you do in the first 7 or 8 chapters of the book of Genesis. You got to really work hard to understand what's going on, all right? Because they're talking in metaphors and things like that. But by the time you hit Abraham, it's in a story form, all right? You just sit there and you just kind of read it like it's a book, which it is. And so you don't need a whole lot of work with it. And the story is absolutely amazing when you actually follow it. The one between Rachel and Isaac is, to me, that's just the ultimate. Rachel is an amazing, amazing girl, when you start talking about her in the Bible. But nonetheless, you have a lot of descendants that begin to branch off from Abraham, right? Now, after Sarah dies, Abraham picks up another woman, another wife. All right, so this is his third wife. And we go, yeah, Sarah, that's Hagar. All right, now he's going to pick up another one. Her name is Keturah. All right, so what it says in chapter, this is just a few verses, and then we're going to be done for tonight. And then again, Abraham took a wife, and her name was Keturah. All right, and she bare him Zimram, Joksham, Medan, Midian, Izikbah, Shuha, and Jokshan, and Jokshan begat Sheba and Dedan, and the sons of Dedan were Ashram, Lishaim, and Leamim, and the sons of Midian, Ephah, Ephra, Hancock, Abba, Elhi, and all these were the children of Keturah. So these are all population groups, right, much like those that come through Ishmael, still all around the place. All right, they still exist to this day. Now, the reason this becomes so important is because of weirdos like me that really think about things like this. Because Medan, all right, Medan is an important one. This is one of the children of Abraham and Keturah. But if you remember, when Moses remember he kills an Egyptian and he flees for 40 years. Well, he goes and he takes him a wife out of the priest of Midian. All right? And because they're called a Kenite. And they're not a Kenite because of who they are, which is a lineage. They're called that because of where they're living. All right? And they're living in their lands, but he's a priest of Midian. And that's who Moses marries into. So it even goes back around and marries right back into Abraham's group again. Even the long way around. And it continues to do that. If you really take your time and leg it out and run the names, you're amazed that every time he goes back to the same group. Why? He's building nations. He's already established Ishmael. So that's Isaac. Isaac's going to get a wife. They're going to have a couple of boys. And those boys, we're going to pick it up next week or tomorrow night, because that's where you start to really get into who Israel is. And you're going to find out that Israel has a brother, all right, just like him, but he's a little turd. All right, and that's just the best way to put it. All right, we're going to pick it up with them then tomorrow night when we get back. All together, it'll be about an hour and a half all together between the two nights. And most of the reason is because I see some of you guys working, you get tired. I know what that's like. I'll live it, believe me. I understand it. And this is kind of dry, and it takes a little bit just to get through. But you have to understand where those 12 tribes come from. Because the reason why I'm doing all this is because people are confused about when you say tribe, what that means. All right? Because even in like anthropology, cultural anthropology, when you say tribe, it's referring to a group of people who have a close genetic relationship. All right? It doesn't mean one ethnic group or another ethnic group. It means this is 12 groups of people that come out of the same group. Right? This same group that you see being developed with this, I'm going to call it God's selective breeding program, for lack of a better way to do it. All right? just because of those things, he picked Hagar. All right, he goes out of his way to go back and get Rebecca. All right, and then when after Jacob and Esau, when they start marrying, Esau goes and marries Canaanite women, and Jacob, he goes right back to Nahor, Abraham's brother, and God sends him all the way back there to get a wife, and that's where then he sends Jacob all the way to Laban's, which is Nahor's family, and there he picks up 2 wives. All right, so we'll get into that then tomorrow night. Anyway, anybody got any questions? Like I said, I know this is hard to swallow, but we got to get through it. It just has to be. And it's much more interesting when you do a line by line, verse by verse study of the book of Genesis, because then you get the whole story, what's really going on. Because the details in this story are amazing, especially when Abraham starts warring. He goes up against this. They're called the kings of the Vale of Sidon, and Abraham. And they whip Sodom and Gomorrah, ransack it, and take off a lot, if you remember. And Abraham goes and finds 300 guys. That's all it was. About 300 men. And he goes, like 300 men I know. And takes 300. They go destroy all of it and bring everything back to Sodom and Gomorrah. All the people, Lot, his whole family. I mean, so Abraham, when you talk about Abraham was not a lay down, he's not a priest. What you think of as a priest, he's blessed by God. Yeah, I'm not mocking at all. All right. But Abraham was a man who took a sword and took care of his business because he didn't stay there. Abraham went with him. All right, so the blood's on our hands, on his hands too. All right, this book is full of hard choices, full of them. All right, you don't really get the nuts and bolts of that until you do a line by line, verse by verse tape. What you get then is just this sanitized version of, and you don't really understand what it was talking about to begin with. All right, but that's enough of my soapboxing for tonight. Anybody got any questions? All right, I'm gonna turn this bad bear off.